Welcome to Houston Newsmakers Extra. We've been talking with Rabbi Brian Strauss, Dr. Ed Young, and Pastor Ralph Douglas West. Let me ask either one of you, did you have any hesitation about shutting your services down and making it for online only? Because there were some services around the country, you may have heard them and read about them. There were some who said, God is going to guide us. We don't need to shut down. We need to continue to do things. Did any of you have any hesitation about changing the way that you're doing your services now?
You know, I think I certainly did. I think everybody did. We recognize I am my brother's keeper. So we have a responsibility here, I think, to try to honor people who may get this disease. And therefore, we discontinued our public services in our churches, not because the city or the state or the judge asked us to do it. We did it, and from my viewpoint, voluntarily, because we didn't know the contagiousness of this disease, and therefore we just moved, as Ralph always does, we have a church outside the walls. Mm-hmm. And that's what the church is anyway. Yes, it's difficult not to congregate together, but it's been a wonderful thrill to see the church alive out in the world.
It's been interesting to watch what's happening, but all of you talked about your numbers. You can actually keep track. When you do social media, you can see the numbers a lot better because Pastor West.
We know exactly how many have been watching on social media.
Right.
I can tell you almost the exact numbers, and it's staggering to me.
You know, back in the old days, people could say they went to church even when they weren't. Now you know whether they're going to church or not. Rabbi, how quickly did you change the way you started to do your service? Did you get pretty quickly into that?
We did, and it was hard, like all religious leaders. It was tough. You know, in Judaism, you have to have a minyan. You have to have 10 people present in order to say what's called the mourner's Kaddish. It's a prayer you say for a loved one when they pass away, and you're obligated to say it for a certain amount of time or on the anniversary of the passing of a loved one. And so it's hard right now because our congregants can't say that prayer. We have a substitute prayer that we are saying that allows them to fulfill their obligation, but it's not the same thing. And so it was tough, but we knew it was the right thing to do to go completely online. You know, in Judaism and all good religions, right, life surpasses everything. And in the Jewish faith, life is paramount. So we have to do everything we can to protect life, to save life. And if that means not having a prayer quorum, a minyan of 10 Jewish adults, that's what we had to do. And so it's tough, but it's obviously the right thing to do.
Pastor West, you've changed everything, but I noticed in your sermons that if the viewer looking really does not notice any difference unless they take crowd shots. If you're in church, normal services, they have shots of the audience. But if they don't, you can just you have a praise team there and a couple of people there, but you can still hit your stride, if you will. Your sermon is going to be the sermon, so sometimes you say, I'm preaching to myself. I know sometimes you say that. In this case, you really are doing that every week.
We all need a lot of that, don't we, Brian?
Yes.
One of the things that online church does, it takes away all of the props, all of the little fluff. So you have to depend upon the core of the gospel, and it's really been a lot of fun. It really has. I mean, you're standing in a cathedral and there's nobody in that room with you. And at this point, you learn a few things. You're not as important as you thought you were. You're not as necessary as you thought you were, but you have the one gift that comes to you, and that is the gift to communicate to people. And people sit down and hear it. And I take it that sitting at home listening, and so I'm to preach all I got to help people, because the Lord can save through social media too. So it's been a real joy. It's been a challenge, but it's been a joy. And we, like others, the decision was made. It was tough. And one thing that I want to say though before we move on in this extra is how sympathetic I am to so many pastors who had not just a difficult time. Now, some people are just being defiant. I'm talking about these congregations of 40, 50 different, people and having to dismiss. Some of this it's been rough on them because this is all they are connected to. There's nothing else that they're connected to. All of their worth, all of their value is in that. And to say shut down, and they don't have
Can't go online.
media or television, things like that. But the good news is, one of the things we've done, we've asked our media people, and I'm sure others have done it, to help churches that don't have media to use our facilities or media to say,
Absolutely.
tape record your message and then play it, back to somebody else.
So one of the problems here, some of our members said, we like church like this. We're here in our pajamas, we're drinking coffee, and we're going to church. Man, we think this is super. That may be a problem we're going to have, guys.
Yeah,
When
I
it's
hope they
time to
come
come back. Yeah, that's going to be the tough thing to get back. You're right. Yeah.
Well, I will confess I'm guilty of being rather relaxed in that context.
There you go.
Let me ask you this: especially during the season of Lent for Christians, and we try to focus on various passages each and every day, trying to do various things each and every day, and make us closer to God. And Passover, you do that as well. What is the personal passages of faith that you have gone to during this time that has given you strength to go through what you're doing? Because you are the leaders of your congregations. What are your personal passages that you have relied on to give you the strength to do what you have to do? Rabbi?
I've been thinking a lot about, there's a great explanation of what we find when Moses, the leader of the Passover story, when he encounters the burning bush, right? He encounters the burning bush. No one else notices it, but Moses notices it. And so what God tells him, the very first thing God tells him when he encounters the burning bush is take off your shoes. So there's one great rabbinic commentary. Why take off your shoes? The Torah says it's because it's holy ground, but why? Why does he have to take off his shoes? And so the rabbinic commentator gives a great explanation. He says, if you're going to be the leader, you have to take off your shoes because you got to feel the stones. You got to feel the impediments. You got to feel the thorns. You got to feel the pain so you can relate to your community, to all the members of your community. You got to feel their pain. If you want to be a great leader, if you want to be able to help people, you got to be able to feel their pain. Well, I think more than ever before, we're seeing everyone's pain out there on TV every day. We hear about people losing their jobs, their livelihoods. They don't know where to go. They're stuck inside. And more than ever before, we're feeling people's pain. We're seeing it every day. We're hearing about these horrible deaths, about people suffering. And so, like Moses, if we want to be good people, righteous people, we want to be leaders when this is all done, we got to go out and help people and do even more, because we know now what it's like to see people suffering every day, even here in America, every day.
Dr. Young, what is your source of strength during this time? The passage.
My life verse is Proverbs 3, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not upon your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. And I claim that verse day after day for most of my life. And I think that's what I have relied on. I know he is with me. He is in me. He is speaking to me. He is guiding me. And so this is just a moment in time which we have, I think, a greater opportunity to present God and present Christ than we've ever had in our history. And sort of piggybacking on what the rabbi said, I'm reminded of the upper room there when Jesus was there experiencing Passover prior to his crucifixion. And the thing that stands out for many people is the fact that all the disciples' feet were dirty and nobody took the task to wash their feet, but Jesus picked up a towel, took a basin, and began to wash the feet of his followers. And I thought about that. You said, take off your shoes. And think about it, divine power with a towel over his arm. We can't forget that picture. And that calls us to service. Anytime we think we're getting too high, too tall, too important, we have to remember the genius to life is humility. And he that would be great among you, Jesus said, become a servant of everybody else. And we're having this opportunity now, and it puts fire in our bones to see people respond and return their life to God. And so that's what I stand on, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, and so many scriptures, as we've all said, speak to a moment of crisis. extremity, always opportunity.
Pastor West?
Yeah, my go-to story during this pandemic has been Job, and to read through his life. One reason is that he encounters these devastating events, one after the other. It actually takes the breath away from him. And then he has friends who come who want to explain everything away. And then in the last part of the story, the last chapters, after 77 questions have been posed, God answers in a non sequitur. He doesn't even address the complaints or the laments. He raises 2 or 3 questions to Job, and all of them have to do with his creation. Can you oversee my creation? Can you explain my creation? Can you subdue my creation? And he uses this strange illustration from natural science. He says, if you can explain a hippopotamus and a crocodile, then you might begin to understand what I'm doing. And then one of our favorite lines of his story said, who is this that darkens my counsel? King James, with these foolish words. And so when God speaks, he doesn't try to explain everything that takes place in Job's life. He reminds him of one thing, that I am the God who is in control. And that's one of the things that every conversation that I heard from Brian, from Ed, it's been the same thing. It all goes back to God is in control. We would say sometimes God is sovereign. That God can do whatever he wants to do, whenever he wants to do it, but to whom he wants to do it with, to achieve his purpose. It's always to bring his purpose. And I think one of the purposes now is as a people to turn our attention back to God. I believe that. I believe that.
Around the world, too, Brian. That's so, you see this everywhere in the world, and all the world is changing. This is a transitional moment in history, I really believe.
Yeah.
Well, I leave you
No doubt.
on that note. I was reading about a gentleman his name is Omar Ritchie. He is a Muslim in Southern California, and he's the spokesperson for the Southern California Islamic Center. And he had a sermon last week where he entitled the sermon, Thank God for Coronavirus. And that raised some eyebrows. And he went on to talk about the fact that coronavirus has made people understand that God's in control. That's the way he meant it. So, I mean, he was kind of out there with the way he wanted to get people's attention with that, but he did that. So there are a lot of people who believe that that is exactly what's happening. But I appreciate you taking your time to talk with us for Newsmakers and Newsmakers Extra. We want to make sure that you have this ability to put this message out. We're going to ask people who have been watching Newsmakers Extra to go ahead and share it with as many people as you can. I guarantee you, you'll be better for it if you do. So thank you, gentlemen, for your participation in this. We appreciate what you do, and for your communities. We wish you the best as you go forward, not only for this day, but for the weeks and months and period of time to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Campbell.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cambrell.